This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome in to Outside the Trenches here on KC Sports Network, presented by our friends at Five Farms Irish Cream Liqueur and, the wonderful folks at Holiday Distillery. Go check them out if you love any of their products, because you already know we do. I'm joined by longtime co-host Nick Leckey, Super Bowl champion with New Orleans Saints, and Big B, Brien Hanley. Fellas, how we doing, Brian? I'll start with you. How's your summer been since we last talked? It's been a minute since we hopped on a podcast all together. So how have you been, and how's the summer going?
It's going good. I mean, I'm here in Dallas, so it has been hot. I mean, there was 8 days in a row when it was like 104. It didn't get less than 104. It was crazy. I have a swimming pool. It was like bath water, so it wasn't even refreshing. I mean, it was horrible. But other than that, man, I've been doing well.
Good. Love to hear it. Nick, how are things on your side of the city? Everything going well?
Yeah, all's good. Brian, no strangers in your pool? Is that hot?
No, I've been here. No, I've been around. So no strangers. I'm going on vacation here in a couple of weeks, so we'll see.
They know. They know. They're gonna have some. You're gonna come back like house party 4. We're just gonna come back to for sure.
Oh man, he's putting it out there. He's opening himself up to it.
He definitely.
But if you're saying the pool's like bathwater, I don't know if anyone's gonna be jumping in. If it's,
I don't know. I say warm. That I don't know anybody that had a pool or who had access to one wasn't in it. I mean, it was just too hot. Too hot.
It's a different level of hot here than Kansas City too, because it's sticky, and even Houston's a whole different level than Dallas.
Yes, it is.
Like it's people die. Old people die in Houston because it's that ridiculous. Yep. Like it's absurd. It's absurd. Like I was in New Orleans and we had training camp in August, full pads, and it felt like I worked in a steel factory.
Whew.
Gosh,
like brutal. The steel factory in T2. Terminator 2, where they melted the T-1000. That's what it felt like. I could feel that every day. Like you go out to pads, like I don't really need to stretch today because I'm already hot and lubed up, ready to
go. We're warm. Yeah, that's really interesting. Training camp, as we were talking about before the podcast, legitimately right around the corner. Rookies report on the 17th. We're recording this podcast on the 11th of July. Rookies report on the 17th. Training camp, or so I should say, rookies and quarterbacks on the 17th. Vets report the 22nd. The first day of practice is the 23rd, which also is a Sunday, which I think is kind of weird. I don't know if that's normally how it is, Nick, but it feels like a first day of practice being Sunday just feels off.
I don't like that. I was with Denny Green my first 3 years, and he was always like, we're going to start camp you're going to report on Sunday, and then we're start on a Monday, start fresh. I was like that. So you never hate to start like on Thursday or anything like that. And by the way, why the hell are they starting so early? Like what? Like I feel like they just had like OTAs or mini camps and things like that. Why is there like everyone in the Hall of Fame game?
It seems like it. It seems like everybody is starting early. It's nuts. It's absolutely crazy.
It's really interesting because I think with the elimination of the 4th preseason game, I believe that was a couple years ago when they went to 17 games, they added another week in between the preseason and the regular season to kind of keep the timing still the same. It'll be interesting to see if they do that again. If once, I feel like it's kind of inevitable the league will move to 18 games with 2 bye weeks. That just basically they just have to do the legal tape around that, the CBA stuff to get it ratified. But like it's going to be interesting to see what they do because they will probably have to take away another preseason game, so they only have 2 preseason games. How the schedule will match up? Will they have to bump the Super Bowl back a week because they're adding another bye week? It's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out. But yeah, it does seem like everyone is starting super early this year. I know everyone's starting at the same time this year, and that might be why. Everyone's starting at the same time just because of that. 19 practices, I believe, are going on in St. Joe. I started mapping it out today of how we're going to be out there covering everything for you guys and for here at KC Sports Network. But with training camp right around the corner, I did want to talk with you guys about some of these AFC contenders because the AFC – we talked about this last time we recorded a podcast. It's stacked. And it's no NFC, right? You wish some of those quarterbacks that are in the AFC would go to the NFC, but lots of contenders going on. Big B, I want to start with you. I think that when we talk about number one contenders in the AFC, the Bengals are that team that you think of and that are going to be right there with the Chiefs this season.
Yeah, I think the Bengals got better where they needed to get better. Now, they lost some secondary and, in safety help that were really good safeties. They lost some guys, but their offensive line is better. Look, I know Chiefs fans don't like Orlando Brown. I get it. I 100% get it. But compared to what the Bengals had, he is a tremendous upgrade. He's going to make their offensive line better. He's just going to make them better. Like I said, I know he hadn't played great the last few years, and he hasn't, but he did enough. I mean, he did enough. Right. And from what Cincinnati has, the Bengals' offensive line is going to be better as long as they stay healthy, which, you got to say that about every team. The Bengals, I believe, are the Chiefs' number one competition to get back to the Super Bowl.
I've never understood the Orlando Brown slander. Brian, did you have a chance to watch him?
I sure did.
At all?
I don't get it. I thought he was fine.
Yeah,
I thought he was fine.
It was bizarre to me. It felt like something was like dominoes falling or something like that. And once they fell, then it's like everyone was like, "No, we're off it." And I'm just like, he does a really good job. Like, he protects the pocket and he's predictable. He's not going to get paid. He's not going to get paid on the end, or he's not going to get beat on the inside.
Nope.
And he's not going to get bull rushed. And it's like he keeps that pocket clean.
It's almost like people think that because he gives up pressure every now and then, that pressures equal sacks. Well, it doesn't equal sacks. That's not what that means. I get it that he's maybe moved the quarterback, has to move around a little bit, but the quarterback can't just be a statue back there too. Yeah. Every now and then, those defensive guys get paid as well. So every now and then, it can't just be a clean, hey, I'm going to get in my set. The guy's going to run right into my chest, and I'm going to block him. Doesn't really work that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would love to see the O-line slander for Joe Burrow when they were giving up, 7 sacks a game, 8 sacks a game, things like that. It's like, that would have been just nuts to live in that town during that era, for sure.
Absolutely.
It really would have been.
What I think is really interesting when you talk about Orlando Brown, I do think that he goes into a spot that is a lot better for him stylistically as an offensive lineman. Joe Burrow gets the ball out a lot faster than Patrick Mahomes does. And a lot of those pressures, Brian, you were talking about this, a lot of the pressures he did give up were like, Patrick Mahomes does hold the ball a little bit, but that's what makes Patrick Mahomes so good, and his ability to make things happen outside the pocket. And you talk about the pressures. I believe the Chiefs had the two tackles that had the most pressures allowed in the league last year, according to PFF. Everybody gauges pressures differently. It's kind of a subjective stat, but according to PFF, Andrew Wiley, Orlando Brown Jr. both had the highest pressures allowed. And I think it's a very conscious shift you've seen the Chiefs do with their offensive line to go a little bit more athletic. Now, it's hard to say that, Orlando Brown's not athletic, but the combine didn't really test very well. His athletic testing and measurements weren't his strong suit, right? But you're going now to a guy with Jawan Taylor, Wanya Morris, guys who tested really well athletically at the combine and tested really well at their pro days, guys who have shown that athleticism in other facets of their game. So a very interesting shift in how the both of these teams are kind of going after their offensive lines. And you're right, I do think that the Bengals do get better with Orlando Brown there. And it was a good pickup for them. I think a lot of the rub with Chiefs fans is the way he wanted to be paid. I know he wanted to be paid very high. And it was something that, a deal that he did turn down going into the season reportedly was one that would have made him a top tier tackle. He wanted to try to get that and didn't quite get that from Cincinnati. So always want to see a guy go out and get paid and get his money and get what he thinks he's worth. And it's really hard too as a fans to say what a guy's worth and what he's not, because the market dictates that, right? I mean, you saw Christian Kirk make all that money last year or the year before. I can't remember what year it was. And did he necessarily deserve that? He played pretty well last year, but I don't think going into that you could have said Christian Kirk was going to make that that big of a contract. So very interesting to see there with the makeup of that team. But I also want to talk about the Buffalo Bills, because they've got some trouble in paradise going on up in Buffalo. Stephon Diggs obviously didn't show up to the mandatory OTAs. Who cares about that, honestly? But now Josh Allen is kind of lashing out at the media up there, saying they made it a bigger deal than it was. Brian, do you think that their window is starting to close in Buffalo for them to compete for the AFC?
I don't. I mean, because when you have the quarterback in place, then I think your window stays open for quite some time. Now, does it stay open forever? No, but Josh Allen isn't 30.
Right.
So I think their window, as long as they keep putting pieces around him, which is the talk right now, they need, a top, not necessarily a top flight, but a better number 2 receiver. But as long as they keep doing that and they actually run the ball with running backs versus getting them beat up, because I think he was just beat up at the end of the year last year. As long as they do that, I think their window is going to be open for quite some time. I think they still have a really good roster. They have good coaching. I got into an argument yesterday online with somebody that said they need to get rid of the coach. He's not doing. I'm like, do you realize what the Bills were before he got there? I'm like, seriously, they were horrible. The guys won 11, 12 games. Nope, not good enough. Got to get rid of him. I'm like, wow, what? I mean, just remember 5 years ago what you were, but now I'm in the fans. Crazy.
Yeah, it really is. Well, I'm a big fan. I like Dawson Knox as your number 2. Like I could see them, kind of following that Chiefs playbook where you get that connection going. He's solid. He always catches the rock when it's near. Always clutch. Never faltered, and just a cool little thing to sneak in behind Diggs. And maybe the Bills need to do the way of the Chiefs, where you got a pretty decent quarterback, and can run the ball for sure, and his accuracy a little left to be left on the table, I guess, as you say, and just create a roster of vets, of these savvy 6-7 year vets who know how to play. And guys who got chips on their shoulders, and just find the right pieces. And who wouldn't want to? I mean, here's the crappy thing though, and Brian can attest this. Do you really want to go to Buffalo? It's like it ain't like a glamorous, like and this is real talk. Like I'm not like I was telling someone, like Oakland went from being like the worst place to go to being Vegas, and now you're like, okay, I want to go there. Yeah, as a player. So there's enthusiasm. Like look at the Tyreek Hill thing, right? He didn't leave Kansas City to go to Buffalo, right? He went to Miami. So, a place like that, you want a destination and a place with no state income tax.
Yeah.
That's big.
I mean, you can take that all the way back to college decisions on where, I mean, I know a lot of times you get some guys from Florida that will go to a Kansas State or a Colorado or a Michigan, someplace like that. But for the most part, those guys don't do that. They're like, man, I'm gonna push back. And even a guy like me, I mean, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and I remember just taking a trip to Michigan when I was in high school, and I'm like, absolutely not. It is 1 degree, and they said that was the high for like the next month. I'm like, I am out on that, man.
It's a real thing. Obviously, highest bidder, of course, in free agency, you'll go where they pay you.
That's right.
If it's like 50-50, then you might lose out on some prospects.
Absolutely.
And I think the Chiefs are lucky that, Cincinnati beat Buffalo in playoffs, because I think without that, I think Buffalo would have had the Chiefs number. So I think Buffalo you're gonna have to watch out for. The media thing, him lashing out the media, who gives a rat's ass, right? It's a slow. Anytime after the NBA finals in the summertime and before it wraps up, when you're watching, volleyball and cricket and cornhole on ESPN, it's a slow news day. It's a slow news day. So it's like, whatever. And a lot of people will also talk about the Stephon Diggs things. He's had a couple years where, dissatisfied with not winning. And, they'll start looking at that thing where he was yelling at Josh Allen in the playoffs and this and that. And it's like, now, discount everything you see on the sidelines. Nobody cared. New season, chip on their shoulder.
And I'm kind of a little worried about the Bills because it feels like this is the one year that people aren't talking about the Bills.
Yes.
And I feel like they're a little underrated coming into this year, and that could be something that they want, that team wants. Maybe the expectations were getting a little too high for them if people think, hey, well, this team's no good. Let's talk about the Bengals now. Let's talk about those guys as being the number 1 contender for the AFC. Maybe that helps them out. And I think another team I want to talk to before I want to get some of your guys' thoughts on, what you guys think of other teams, but another one that I wrote down that I thought, maybe they could be a threat this year is the New York Jets. Obviously making the big blockbuster deal for Aaron Rodgers. They have a historically long playoff drought. I believe it's 12 years. Do they break that this year? Well, I don't want to ask you that. Do you think the Jets can be a contender for the AFC right now, Brian?
I think they'll be a contender. Anytime you bring in Aaron Rodgers, I think last year was kind of an anomaly for him. I don't think he was all into it. I really don't. I mean, he had a bunch of new receivers. He didn't put in the offseason work with those guys, time that you got to put in. He didn't do any of that. Kind of took us on the whole Brett Favre train of, do we want to play? Do we not want to play? Maybe I want to play, that whole thing. So I don't know. I just think that bringing him in, he's got a fresh start. One thing that they can do is they can run the football. They ran it last year. So they've got some weapons, and that defense is crazy good. Mm-hmm. So if they can get some consistent play, I think you have to throw them in the mix. They got a tough division, but I think you got to throw them in the mix, man, especially with that defense. If the defense is still healthy, they're going to be in every ball game. They're going to be in every ball game.
I think they're in a similar situation, almost exact similar situation to Denver. You playing a tough division where you got to play those teams twice, and you got a strong defense, and you got a quarterback who's looking to really improve from the year before. So to me, what you're seeing in Denver and what you're seeing out in Strong Island with the Jets is exact same scenarios. Killer defenses, tough schedule, aging quarterback who's going to be a Hall of Famer and is got a chip on his shoulder, is going to be able to get shit done. And I honestly, I think this is good for Aaron Rodgers to have that sort of like bad year and then to kind of shine. And for him to be in New York, I think that's a good media market for him. And, they want to hop, the national media wants to hop on a New York team so bad because the Giants have been so terrible and, not dealing up Saquon Barkley. And if he sits out the season, then there's going to be so much drama and they're going to be so distracted with what's going on over the Meadowlands that they're going to have to worry about Aaron Rodgers, starting some action. And maybe the Jets will average more than, 13 points a game more on offense than they did last year.
That offense was dreadful last year. The Jets were one of those teams where I'm like, okay, I think you have to make him a contender because probably the best quarterback in the NFC last year comes over to the AFC. And again, you're looking at a very crowded kitchen when you talk about how many cooks are back there in the AFC. There's a lot more teams too that I want to hit on, but we got to take a break first. I want to get your guys' thoughts on some other teams coming up right after this break.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
Welcome back in to Outside the Trenches, presented by Five Farms Irish Cream Liqueur from our friends at Holiday Distillery. Appreciate it. For you guys sticking out, hanging out. We're talking about some contenders in the AFC, just AFC teams because this division is so loaded. I open the floor up to you guys. Nick, I want to start with you. Are there any other teams that when you're looking at the AFC that we haven't talked about yet that kind of like catch your eye, like, oh, they could be pretty sneaky come playoff time?
Well, I think that the Denver thing, I hit on it earlier. Yeah. And I also think an old move Sean Payton did, which is similar to what Gruden, when he was at Tampa, did to Sean Payton when he's in New Orleans, was snatch their one of their aging vets and pay him. So the whole Frank Clark to Denver, right? That's a big move. That's a big move because you got a guy who went against them every day in practice, might know some of the calls, might know some of the things. Some of the defensive keys, maybe he's going to be like, hey, here's what we do. Here's how we attack them. Here's where they're vulnerable in practice. It's like had that experience going against the offensive lineman. And like I said, you already have a great defense. You add him, who's a solid veteran leader. And then you got a guy with a chip on his shoulder and a quarterback guru who knows his players and is a fantastic coach. Probably one of the best coaches to have a pulse on players. I mean, almost similar. Is Mike Tomlin like that, or is Mike Tomlin more like military, like sort of like aggressive, like no room for laughing?
He's more of a players. I mean, he's serious from what I've heard anyway, but he is more of a players, more galvanizing type of a coach.
Okay. I got you there. So I think that I'd say Denver again, man. I'm going to stick with that because I think they could be the dark horse to win the AFC West.
Ooh,
I said it. I know you're laughing, but listen, man. My stepdad says when you're in Vegas and you're down, never make a do for bet. You know, where it's like they're due for a win. Man, they haven't won. No one has won versus like the Chiefs in a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what better time to win and then to clinch the division too?
Yeah. I mean, I think that Denver's going to be sneaky this year. I put them on one of my top. We did a list. We did a top 5 rankings list, and of the top 5 defenses the Chiefs will play this year, and I put Denver on that list. They've got a really good defense, and adding Frank Clark to that is, again, like you were saying, could be a little interesting. But Big B, what do you got? What's another team that we haven't talked about yet that you've got your eye on?
I think everybody's going to say the Chargers. I don't think the Chargers are sneaking up on anybody. I think if they're going to put it together, it's got to be this year. But a team that I think kind of has slipped through the radars after their quarterback got a big contract is Baltimore. I think Baltimore their defense is still going to be there. They went through a ton of injuries. I just think Baltimore and Lamar Jackson are going to finally put something together. I've got him and Patrick Mahomes battling out for the MVP this year. I think Baltimore is going to be really good. As a Steeler fan, that drives me insane to say that.
Hurts you. That hurts you.
That hurts my pride deeply.
I know that hurts you.
But they're going to be very good. I just have a feeling they're going to be very good.
Yeah. I had the Jags. I had the Ravens down on my list. The Jags were also down there. But it's going to be interesting because they finally put pieces. Big B, I think we've talked about this. They finally put pieces around Lamar. They've finally, number one, paid him and made him happy. They've put weapons around him. They drafted a wide receiver in the first round for him. Like, they're doing everything they can to be in the right position that they need to. Now it's going to be on the shoulders of Lamar, right? I think that's really what it comes down to is Lamar. And in the conversation of kind of him and the Ravens has always said like, oh, I don't have the weapons that I need to. Aaron Rodgers has kind of said the same thing. And so he's had that to kind of lean on a little bit. I don't want to necessarily say that he has done that. But the arguments have kind of leaned on that. Now it's like, okay, Lamar, let's get back to that MVP year. What year was that? 2020, maybe
2019.
Oh gosh, 2019. That was a lot longer ago than I thought. Get back to that 2019 year and see what you can do. I think the Ravens are a very interesting team this year to watch and just kind of see how that all develops. And as you said, Brian, I mean, they got to stay healthy. That's with every team though. But they look pretty tough. But I put down the Chargers. This is the one year I feel like that everyone's sleeping on the Chargers. We're not having these media members come out here and say, oh, the Chargers are winning the AFC West already. Book it. And it feels like one of those years that they're just going to be healthy. They're finally going to get injury luck because they've been one of the lucky teams when it comes to injuries. They're going to get it to go their way. And eventually I think the Chargers are good. That's a good football team. And I think that now that like people aren't fully focused on the Chargers are going to win the West, they're going to go to the AFC Championship. Again, kind of talking about with the Bills. Maybe this is something that they need where it's not all these expectations on them. But again, the Chargers are going to Charger, but it's one of those teams that I still am a little worried about, truthfully.
Well, I mean, when you got Brandon Staley as your head coach, you're already working with a handicap. I mean, you're
behind your back.
You got to deal with that because that guy, I mean, he will get in the way at some point. So if they have a very talented roster. So if they can overcome that, then you're right about the Chargers. I don't know. I just that playoff loss last year just left a sour taste in my mouth. And again, I know I've said it here before. Justin Herbert, I know he's broken a bunch of records. I know he's got a ton of talent, but you can't complete it. I know they only ran the ball 8 times, but you can't complete enough passes to beat a team when you're up 27-0. Even just short little passes to keep the clock running. I just don't want to hear it, man. I don't want to hear how he is this anomaly, the next Patrick Mahomes or just as good as Mahomes. I just don't want to hear that.
Yeah,
it's just the fact that he's in LA. They want to build him up.
Yeah,
I think that's what it skews towards the major TV markets because TV revenue it drives everything, man. And so you want those massive markets to be good, and they'll always get the hype. And you're right. This is the one year you're not really hearing much out of them. And it's really tough when you blow something that big as well too. You don't really have a lot of, not there's momentum, but you don't have that media momentum from last year where they're not picking you. Because, I mean, let's be honest, everyone's a champion right now, except for if you're in the AFC South. It's not going to happen. So.
I don't know if we talked about this last show, but the AFC South is going to be the first division that has all domed stadiums.
Oh, wow.
With Jacksonville? Jacksonville has a plan out to build a dome stadium.
Yeah, they do. It's like $400 million rebuild or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's something crazy. They've got, and it looks like the future. Like it looks like it was straight out of the Jetsons. And Nashville has also they're redoing their stadium.
Really?
That's going to be really good.
New one.
They've got a dome. They're going to have a dome. So when Jacksonville finishes their stadium, they'll be the first division with all domed stadiums, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Wow, that is interesting. All those bachelorette parties paying off for Nashville. Huh? They're gonna fund the dome alone off that street.
I guess that the deal with the city was just so one-sided to the team that even if Nashville wanted out of it, it would have been more money to renovate the stadium or something like that than to actually build. Or at least that's what they're telling people.
Yeah, of course.
That it would have been more money. It's probably all PR. But.
That's Pentagon math, right there.
There you go. There you go.
Let's fix it. No, that's way too much money.
I've done the math here. You can see on this sheet of paper that I've done the math, and this is a solid research right here. It's definitely we need a new stadium. Exactly.
No, but I thought that was interesting. The AFC South, not good. Chiefs always struggle against AFC South teams, though. I don't know what it is.
It's a noon game, and you don't take it seriously. That's all it is. Yeah. And they always are terrible, and it's their playoff win because they're mathematically eliminated from playoffs because it's December, and it's just, Plus, you're going against a warhorse when you play Tennessee, too.
Yeah. That is true. That dude's insane.
That division, man. I'm just sitting here thinking about it, and I'm like, the Colts. I don't know what happened to the Colts offensive line, because that would have been a team last year that you thought would have been somebody that, minus they had quarterback issues. Don't get me wrong, but you didn't know that going into the season, and you thought they were going to be okay. This is somebody they can run the football. They play halfway decent defense. They're going to be there, and their O-line, which was top 5 in the league the year before, was horrendous last year. I don't know what happened. They nobody got hurt. They just weren't any good anymore. Nick, do you know what happened?
Was it Matt Ryan's first year?
Yeah. Is that what happened?
You can't have these quarterbacks who are unathletic back there. Every quarterback now, it's like you got to have athleticism. Like the pocket passer outside of Aaron Rodgers, he still got some slipperiness to him. But the pure pocket passers like a Matt Ryan, it's not going to happen anymore. And Mahomes, all the good quarterbacks, they bail out their offensive line. They make their offensive line look better because, you can't gone are the days when you can, one arm tackle a quarterback. You can't arm tackle a quarterback anymore. So, and if you still can, then you don't deserve to play in the league anymore. And so that's what happened with Indianapolis. Is Matt Ryan.
I mean, they had Phillip Rivers too. That year before, but Phillip Rivers still is a little bit more mobile than I think a lot of people gave him credit for in his career. More mobile than the shell of Matt Ryan was. Standing back there, the corpse of Matt Ryan. I felt bad at some point watching them. It's just dude, they just can't get anything going, and then they had injury after injury on that offensive line. But no. So let's get into the Blind Nil segment. Nick's favorite segment.
How much longer are you gonna be?
I've got a good question here to start off with the Blind Nil, and it kind of goes into my Jets point that I wanted to bring up, but I want to know what team is the most likely to end their playoff drought, and the Jets have a long one. It's been since 2010 since they have been to the playoffs.
Damn,
they went to those
championship games.
They went to those back-to-back AFC championship games, and I can remember
Rex Ryan.
Man, wouldn't that be nice for the Chiefs if they could go to back-to-back AFC championship games? I was jealous of the Jets for a little bit there. They haven't been since 2010. Looking back, Denver 2015, and then you have the Lions at 2016, and the Falcons and the Panthers both at 2017. So out of the Jets, Lions, Falcons, Broncos, Panthers, who do you think has let's say outside of the Jets, because I think that actually I think that's a good conversation to have. Do you think the Jets make the playoffs? And what other team do you think has a good chance of breaking that streak?
I think the Lions. I know everybody's jumping on the Lions bandwagon and thinking they're going to own the division. I think they probably have the best chance. I think, first of all, I think the Jets. I don't think the Jets are making it. I don't.
Okay.
I think that division is too tough. I think Miami is not way better. Miami's better than they are. Buffalo is better than they are. The Patriots won't be. But I think their division is too tough. They're not going to make the playoffs. I think the Lions have an outside chance. I think they sneak in on the last playoff spot. I don't know that they're going to win that division. I still like Minnesota, but the NFC not that good. So I think the Lions will have an opportunity there.
You know, if I'm saying the two, I'm thinking Jets and Broncos. I think the Lions. I think what the Lions did is Dan showed him as a head coach, you know, what he can do. You know, masterclass for turning down the false start, right? So get one more down, get 3rd and 1, and trusting his team. I'll be curious. I think he'll be able to take that energy throughout the whole season, right? But I think in the end, I mean, actually, I just talked myself into it. I mean, without Aaron Rodgers, right? Who are the Packers? Honestly, we've seen what the Packers were when Aaron Rodgers was hurt, and they should have beat Kansas City, but because they had the backup was Jordan Love, and it's so I'm thinking it's going to be Lions and Broncos because I agree with Brian where, man, that AFC East, they're a bunch of cannibals. Yeah. Like they play each other so tough. Like even Miami was so terrible, they would always find a way to beat New England, right? For some odd random reason. And Miami's a sneaky place to play in October because it's nice where you're at, and it's still hot as hell and humid in Miami when you go play them in October. So it's this weird home field advantage. You're playing a noon game there at Pacific Life, Shark, Sun Devil, Jimmy Buffett Stadium, Crypto, FX Exchange Center. That is down there in Miami. So yeah, so I'm thinking Lions and Broncos are the two going to end their drought this year. I believe that they do. And Broncos, I've already said that. You know?
Yeah. Well, I think you said every sponsor of that stadium except for the current one, which is Hard Rock, by the way. Which kind of impressive, honestly. Yeah. You were getting name, and I was like, "Are you going to hit all of them?" No, everyone except the current one. I think that the Lions do have the best shot out of this list, and it is because Brian, what you brought up, the NFC is bad. They could win their division, and if they win their division, wouldn't be surprised at all. I think some people are even picking them to win the division. Minnesota is good. It's a 2-horse race, I think, with those. I don't think the Bears will be up there yet. I did like what they did this offseason. I don't think the Bears are up there yet. I think it's between Minnesota and Detroit. But Detroit, I think, will get in a wild card if they don't win the division, just with how the math works out. You start talking about these AFC teams. I mean, I guess the only one is it's Denver and New York. The math is going to get really tight when it comes to wild card time because Denver's probably not winning the West. The Jets probably aren't winning the East. And it's going to be one of those things where it comes down to, okay, at the end, the last game, that decision day, where's the math work out to? I haven't really dove into the Jets or the Broncos schedules, but I think they finished kind of around the same spots in their division last year. So they should have like 3rd or 4th place schedules. So they won't be incredibly difficult schedules as like some of these other teams will. So maybe that'll benefit them in the long run. But I do think the Lions, I don't want to say lock, but I feel very confident the Lions are making the playoffs this year. And I think it is because of Dan Campbell, Nick, is what you're saying, that attitude kind of for that team. Dan Campbell just kind of really watching the Hard Knocks was one of the things where I'm just like, I like this Dan Campbell guy. Like he gets after it and he coaches it the right way. Another players coach guy, a player who was a coach, and a staff that is full of ex-players. Like Antoine Randall L's their wide receiver coach, and they've got all kinds of former players on that team. So I'm waxing poetically about the Lions because I really feel strong about this team for some reason. I don't know why. It's one of those that I have blind faith in Dan Campbell because they weren't world beaters last year, but they won games that they should have, and they won some games that they shouldn't have. So which is good, what you got to do sometimes. But Very big fan of the Lions. I am very interested that we're all kind of lower on the Jets in making the playoffs than it seems like a lot of people are. Uh, a lot of people think there's just because they got Aaron Rodgers that they're a lock for the playoffs. The division is pretty tough.
Yeah, it is. I just think, like I said, the division, I think those two teams are just better than they are. Yeah. I think the Bills and I think the Dolphins are just better than the Jets. So when it comes down to, are they better than Baltimore? I don't think they are. You just start counting. Are they better than the Broncos or the Chargers? I don't think they are. So it's like you said, the numbers get tough. They get real tough. But going back to the Lions just real quick, one thing that you said, Tucker, is a lot of times you see when they were struggling early last year, and even in this offseason, they start firing coaches. They'll fire offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. They just start getting rid of people.
Anybody.
They didn't do that. They said, you know what? We're going the other way with this. It's the players. It's not our system. It is the players. We are going to get some new players in here and do this thing the right way. And that, as a former, I wasn't an NFL player, but as a former player, that is refreshing to see an organization say, you know what? It is not always the player or the coaches that are doing it wrong and going that way. It is the players. And they went and got new guys in key positions, and that's why I like the Lions. Or maybe I'm just rooting for them because they actually went a different direction.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I'm just rooting for them. But I feel confident in them. We're all pretty high on the Lions, which I don't know. I think it fits our brand, right, to be high on the Lions just with the way that the style of the team is. But
yeah, I love him. I played with Dan Campbell in New Orleans, so he's an awesome guy. He's an awesome guy. He was one of the few tight ends who can pass block. A&M, long career. Had to call it quits because his knees were just so banged up, and just awesome guy, just awesome human being. And he's swole. He could probably him and Vrabel would probably death match to see who is going to win if you just put like a Thunderdome action with all 32 coaches for sure. I think that's he would take first.
Last thing before we get to our second break here, did you guys see the clip last year when he was doing the up downs with all the players? Yeah, I think it was like 50 up downs in training camp, but he broke his wrist like the night before and was doing up downs on a broken wrist.
Yeah, unbelievable.
He walks the walk. He walks the walk.
Yeah. I can't imagine as a player, if you're out there and you're seeing that, you're like, okay, I'll go to war for this guy right here.
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. You trust the game plan. You trust the game plan is what you do.
Yeah, you do.
That's what you trust the game plan. When he installs it on Wednesday, you're like, all right, I trust this. I know he's going to do it. And then he proved himself. Like I said, that last game of the year, where they won, but then didn't make the playoffs or whatever happened. I think he's going to earn a lot of credibility with that this season. And that's going to go a long way for them.
Absolutely.
There you go. Big Lions podcast. We're going to continue Blind Nil coming up right after this break.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
Hanging out here on Outside the Trenches, presented by Five Farms Irish Cream Liqueur and our friends at Holiday Distillery. Go check them out if you want to get in that holiday spirit already, with that Irish cream liqueur when it gets cold outside. It's good football weather drinking right there. You put that Irish cream in there. All right. We've got two more Blind Nils left. Nick, I kind of want you to close us out. So Big B, I'm going to go to you. What do you got for us this week?
Well, I'm going to take it a little bit more on the serious side. This story that came up here recently has kind of bothered me a little bit. So wanted to ask you guys, any hazing stories that you guys ever had or had to go through? Because me personally, even when I went to Xavier and played basketball, Coffeyville, K-State, I didn't really have any of that. I mean, the only thing that really ever went down was, a guy would get his head shaved, or they may hold a guy down and they spanked him a couple of times or stuff like that. But the stuff that we heard that was going on at Northwestern, that kind of stuff, I never saw anything even remotely close. And I know there's a lot of people that are saying, well, kids are soft these days. And I'm like, I don't care. I would have never participated in that. Even back then, 20 plus years ago, I never would have participated in anything like that. They'd have just had to kick me off the team because I wouldn't have done that. So that's kind of my thing. It's like, I can't believe that kind of stuff is going on. And apparently the whole coaching staff knew about it. I think that's outrageous, personally. I just do.
What happened? I haven't read anything about it. I know he got fired, but what happened?
That supposedly they had this thing, I think it was called the Shrek team or something, a big whiteboard in the middle of the locker room with young players. Like if you made a mistake in practice, you had to get on this list. And they were making them go into a closet naked, like some closet naked and doing stuff. I don't know what happened. And then they made them do like naked bear crawls in the locker room around on the floor. And I'm like, first of all, who wants to see that, number one?
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I'm like, what is going on?
Some linemen do that. Like,
I don't get it. I just don't get it. And that was
bad senior leadership. It's bad senior leadership.
Yeah.
And then it's like coaches should know better. So whether Fitzgerald knew or not, man, you got to know. You got to have a pulse in your team. And you got to have guys and be like,
yep.
Yeah, apparently he also knew because, they came out and they said they were suspending him for 2 weeks, which was an absolute joke. I mean, a coach getting suspended in July for 2 weeks, they're not even at the complex.
Yeah, they're not allowed to be there.
Yeah, so they're not even doing anything. But then the guy that actually made the complaint went to the newspaper and was like, hold on, he absolutely knew. He was making clapping signals, signaling that this guy needed to be on, that guy needed to be on, that he knew. I just think, and again, this may not even be what we're trying to talk about here, so I apologize, but I just thought it was something to bring up. Had you guys ever experienced anything like that? Because for me, there was some hazing, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't anything near
lighthearted
what is going on, right? Not even remotely close.
That's sadistic. That's like, no. In that K-State, we got our heads shaved as new guys, and that's about it. And it was like, okay, fine. And then you're done with it.
So, I mean, nothing like anything harmless like that. I mean, you see, there's sometimes people are like, yeah, you got a hazy, get a tattoo. Like, that's too far. That's a permanent thing that can be done. But, and it was it was criminal what they did, really, when you talk about it. And just kind of the whole scandal and everything with the culture of the team and having a head coach that kind of allows that and almost encourages it to a point is not somewhere you want to be in 2023. It was one of those things that, it was kind of shocking that it was like, wow, we're still doing this kind of thing. I think I remember that was like my reaction when I saw that story came out. I said, oh, this is still happening. Well, it's a shame, honestly. And hopefully everything gets sorted out and justice is served. Everything.
And I apologize, man. I'm not trying to bring the show down or in a sour mood or anything like that. I apologize. I just thought I haven't heard the links of this kind of stuff in a while. And it's just what you said, Tucker. I'm like, I didn't even realize this kind of stuff went on anymore.
For sure.
I can't believe that. And in Northwestern, supposedly they ran such a squeaky clean program. Just goes to show you, man, you just don't know. You just don't know.
Not at all. All right, Nick, you want to take us home?
Sure.
Let's do
it. What's the last good book you guys have read?
Oh my goodness.
Ooh. Man. To Kill a Mockingbird?
Good old Harper Lee. I love it. That's a
fantastic book. Man.
I'll give you guys time to think about it. I just read a good one called Lead Yourself First. I thought it was a good book on leadership and just talk about how all these different historical leaders throughout time have used solitude to sort of gather their thoughts and come up with a plan going forward. And I just want to encourage you guys, and if you guys are listening, check this book out from your library. And just like I said, it gives anecdotes from, about Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses S. Grant, MacArthur, different presidents, different CEOs and leaders and things like that, modern day. And it's really cool, like how they do it, and just talks about how they stepped away from everything in this world of distractedness and just finding that solitude where you can just get away from your phone, get away from your computer, and just sort of think on things and just kind of, figure out your next step. So it was a great book, and I really loved it. I really did love it.
I was looking around at my bookshelf back there to see if this was the book I have in my hand is the last one I actually read. And I believe it is. It's The Last Folk Hero, The Life and Myth of Bo Jackson by Jeff Pearlman, New York
nice.
Times selling author. He sent me a copy of his book. Really appreciative to him.
Nice.
It's a thick one, and it's a lot to get through, but it is very in depth. He talks to a lot of people around Bo Jackson's life, in Bo Jackson's life. Now, nothing from Bo Jackson in this book, but it is a very detailed and painted picture of kind of how Bo Jackson is that last kind of folk hero that we'll have as a guy who seems like a lot of his stories are larger than life when it comes to athletics and his feats on the football field, on the baseball field. Just kind of an incredible glimpse into his life and how people remember him, even though he did have such a short career and professionally in both of these sports. But people will always remember Bo Jackson. And if you say Bo Jackson, kids will be like, oh yeah, I know who Bo Jackson is, because just kind of that folk hero type vibe to him is very good, very interesting, a very big nonfiction biography type of guy. So that's my jam right there.
Gotcha. Mine was, believe it or not, it was the latest Bill Snyder autobiography.
I just can't get enough, huh?
I couldn't get enough. Couldn't get enough. They suckered me into it. I bought it, but there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from it. Of course, when I opened it up, the first chapter that I went to was 1998 and how he lost to Texas A&M. And then I relived it and I almost ripped the entire thing apart, but somehow I restrained myself. But, it brings you back, to certain lessons in life, because you learn a lot about Coach Snyder, about who he is. And how he went through day to day as a football coach and as a man, and whether you want to believe it or not, on whether you learn things from your football coach or whether you don't, if you're paying attention, just halfway paying attention, man, you do. You actually do, and it was just a lot of bringing me back to certain things, that the way I live my life. Not that I'm that guy that followed everything the coach said or anything. I'm not trying to say that, but it's just normal stuff that you don't think about on a day-to-day that he used to preach, that you actually interpret into your life, that makes sense, that can make you a better human being. It's just simple stuff too. I mean, and it's like I said, it's just the easy things in life that you have to interpret and do. I mean, and a lot of just little things. I guess that's the better word for it. Just the little things that can make you a better human being.
I could see that, but as an 18 to 22-year-old, you don't want to hear that.
I didn't want to hear any of it.
As a 41-year-old, as a 41-year-old, it made so much sense that I always tell people, it's not Coach Snyder's thing. His best thing was he wasn't talking to you as a punk ass 18, 21-year-old. He was talking to you as a man.
Absolutely.
And that was his direction, was not, we're going to take you and make you an NFL player. We're going to make you into a decent human being.
Correct.
Who's going to be a respectable member of society in Manhattan.
Correct. Absolutely.
I'll read that.
Absolutely. But I didn't want to, like you said, I didn't want to hear any of it at the time. Not even a little bit.
I had it all figured out.
Not even a little.
Yeah.
Love it. I also got a View from Center, Tim Grunhard's book, biography again, that he was a part of writing, and that himself, very good. I've got let's see what book is down here.
I love all the football books, Tucker. That's awesome.
Yeah, I like my whole library is football books. I think I got the pass coverage glossary that I've been looking at.
Nice.
Yeah. Defensive coordinator handbook right here. Just
who is that?
It's very good.
No, who's on the cover? That Bo Pelini?
That's not Bo Pelini.
Who is that? I couldn't tell. Okay, I got
you.
I'm
the Steelers.
Yeah.
Dick LeBeau.
Yeah.
Dick LeBeau. Yeah. There you go. Listen, I really showed my age right there.
Draft well.
Draft
well. That's what you do for the Steelers. Just draft well and play crazy 3rd and 7+ defenses that are ridiculous.
We're going to blitz from we're just going to bring somebody out of the stands to blitz.
Yeah. And guess what? No one's going to have their hand in the dirt, and they're all just going to be moving around. just wherever.
I mean, this thing is so full of. It's so full of great information from coverage schemes. You got pages full of just different coverage schemes and everything. And I got the pass coverage glossary back there. It's always good to have those things. And listen, every coach has different coach speak for everything. So there's not one universal language really when it comes to coverages, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Every coach seems like they call the same thing 3 different names. But no, I love to soak in that information, especially with the football stuff. But Nick, great question. That's a good one to end on. That's a good one to end on.
Thank you.
Don't disappoint. And hopefully we didn't disappoint either. So we appreciate you listening all the way to the end of this Outside the Trenches podcast produced by our friends at Five Farms Irish Cream Liqueur and our friends at Holiday Distillery. Appreciate you listening all the way to the very end. We'll be back sometime soon with training camp ramping up here. They start on July the 23rd. That's the first day of practice. So if you're in the Kansas City area, want to get up to St. Joe, I believe it's a $5 practice day. That's a $5 entry. There's only 3 of those this year. So, and they're on the Saturdays. So if you want to go on a Saturday, you're going to have to go up the 2 Saturdays, and the first Sunday is the first practice, but the weekend practices are $5. It's a good time. I recommend going out there if you can in the city. If you're close, go on up there, get that. It's unprecedented access really for fans to get to see these guys up close and get to see how they train and get ready for the season. So for Nick Leckey, for Brien Hanley, I'm Tucker Franklin. That's going to do it for today's episode of Outside the Trenches. We'll catch you later.